to the Wild Wisdom Podcast with Dr. Patricia Mills. I'm Dr. Patricia. This podcast is for people who want to transform their health, restore their hormones, and reconnect to their body's natural wisdom. Hi, I'm Dr. Patricia. I'm a Canadian medical doctor, published author, internationally recognized researcher, and passionate advocate for your health. Here, we'll explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science, distilling the essence of true health into practical steps you can take. Wild wisdom is instinctive knowledge in action. Thanks for making this part of your day. And then what also happened along the road that I really should mention, because currently I definitely have a very special interest in women's health. And the reason for that was because when I started to learn all of these things about what is health versus not poor health, I started to realize that I was not healthy, which came as a bit of surprise to me because I was always watching what I ate. Like I had always been very careful, I thought, with what I was eating. I was very fit. Like I would exercise, and even during my residency, I remember like my saving grace I would go to the gym every day. That was like the way I let out stress. And but there were things about my health that, and this might be too much information, but at the same time, I have to share this because a lot of women come to me with these problems. Okay, so this is what I was experiencing, and if you're a woman who's experiencing these issues, my heart goes out to you because it is not easy, and you're led to think sometimes that it's normal, like a normal thing that should happen or happens, but it's not normal. It is a sign of your health not being well. And especially with women, when you have issues that reflect hormonal imbalance, that's your signal. It's like the when you have fire and there's like a smoke that comes first and the smoke detector goes off, like that's a smoke detector going off. It's like, okay, something's not well. You got to really get to the root cause. If you just turn off the smoke detector so that, the alarm goes off, but you let the fire rage, what happens is over time, the fire will continue and consume you, right? So what was happening with me, my early signs, my smoke detector, so to speak, alarm, was that I was starting to get extremely painful hemorrhagic periods. When my menstrual cycle came around, I would bleed out and be like cramping pain. Like if I didn't chew ibuprofen or Advil, I could not function. Like for 3 days, I would just be taking it just to function. It was terrible. And then I remember like the day that I wrote my final exam to become a doctor, a culmination of 13 years of work. And we had flown into Ottawa to do the in-person practical. It's like everybody comes in, there's patients who are actors, like people who are actors who pretend to be patients. And each room there's an actor, and then there's doctors like sitting there watching you, how you perform with the actor. And before you go in, you have to read a stem saying, this is a 35-year-old individual and they're presenting with this problem. Take a history, do a physical exam, and tell us what you would do, right? And so the most anxiety-provoking, stress-provoking experience ever, I had spent years preparing for this. And the night before I started to get my period, and I spent the night in agony. And I just didn't even think, nothing was coming through my mind in terms of why is this happening to me? Or what is this normal? I was like, okay, here's my period. It's painful. Let me chew my Advil and ibuprofen, and I hope I get enough sleep so I can function tomorrow, right? This is my thinking. And I did the exam. I passed that night. I was out at a party, celebrating, and I almost hemorrhaged, oh my goodness, I had to change my pants twice. It was terrible. I was bleeding out. And you know what my solution to that was? I went to my doctor. At the time, I didn't know better. And bless her heart, she didn't know better either. So I don't place any blame on the system. There's on the individuals working with this in the system. When the system is broke, it doesn't matter how good the parts are. So she was really doing her best. And she said to me, well, why don't we put you on the Mirena, which is the IUD, the intrauterine device that gives you local hormones. I had been on the oral contraceptive pill before, but something within me knew that I didn't want to do that. It was like, I had been so proud of me when I got off of it after 10 years of being on it. I was like, I just don't want to do that again. I don't even know why. It was like a spidey sense. But I was so desperate at the time, and this seemed to be the only option. So I did it. So what I was doing is I was turning off, and the thing is, my body was not lacking a Mirena. My body was not lacking an IUD. That was not what my body needed. My body had a hormonal imbalance, which is not the way my mind was thinking at the time. And it needed me to focus in and fix that imbalance. But instead, I did a Band-Aid solution, which was the IUD. So it made me feel better. It definitely and even my periods went away. And at the time I was just like so grateful. I was like, oh, I don't even have to deal with periods anymore, And now knowing what I know about oral contraceptives and other hormonal contraceptives, it's a totally different story. But, and so what happened was, because I did that, instead of searching for the root cause of why I was feeling that way and having those experiences, other things slowly started to creep up. Like, for example, I had a very hard time becoming pregnant when I got off of the Mirena, even beyond the scope, like 2 years after. And I know that's considered quote unquote normal. I don't think that that's necessarily normal when you have a hormonally balanced individual with another hormonally balanced individual trying to conceive. That can be normal for some people, but it's becoming extremely prevalent. And that's unusual, I think, in my opinion. And it felt wrong to me. I was like, this is a reflection of something within my health. And then during my pregnancy, I found out I had a massive fibroid. And that's a common problem that women have these days too. So common problems, menstrual difficulties, problems with conceiving, and then a fibroid. And you wouldn't think that those are all related, and they are, because those are all signs of hormonal imbalances. So then I had my fibroid, and then I had my child, and then I had all of these difficulties afterwards. Like, I had a hard time losing the weight, even though I was eating all the right things and exercising the right way. And I'm doing the air quotes again, because now I know that those were not the right approaches for me, for my body. And I started getting a rash on my face. And when I got the rash on my face, I went to the doctor, and she prescribed a topical steroid cream. Little did she know that that's not what you're supposed to do, because it can cause a rebound effect when you stop using it, which means it gets worse when you stop that treatment. And by that time, I had been, in the research for my dad, and I started to dive more in the research for myself as well. I was like, you know what? I'm in here, and I remember reading stuff about hormones and about nutrition and about stress and hormones and how they're all interconnected, and I'm learning this in functional medicine. So I started to put all of these pieces together. And then again, I didn't respect the boundaries. I went into Ayurveda. I went into traditional Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine. I got really fascinated by testing. Like, how can I test beyond what the current medical system is paying for, right? What are the tests available? And, here I was thinking that I was pretty healthy. But I was starting to get a signal that I wasn't. And I remember sitting at the naturopath, and we were going to order all these extra tests to do. And I was half expecting that they were all going to come back normal, because I was eating well and exercising well. And the test came back, and things were not well according to those tests. I had food sensitivities. I had problems with my stool, showing up all these things. Anyways, I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. And that's when I realized, you know what? I really got to get into this. And I actually took a few years, and I focused inward. And, I took the time, I started to prioritize myself more. I got into really learning about nutrition and what was right for me and my body. And I tried everything. That's the thing. I've tried everything, literally everything, because I thought, you know what? I just want to try it out. There's Dave Asprey's famous for bulletproof and trying everything on himself. I feel like I'm kind of like him in a way, although maybe some different limits in different places. But I definitely, I bought all the stuff. I tried it all out, all the grounding mat for sleeping and infrared saunas and everything. I don't even want to mention some of the stuff. And I learned what worked and didn't work. And then I started noticing massive shifts in my health, really amazing shifts. And then people started noticing. And it would come up in conversations, and friends would start asking me for advice. And I clearly remember there was a couple girls, friends of mine, who were interested in this. And they said, hey, do you mind teaching us about this? And I said, sure. So we met in the park, and what was supposed to be just a little while turned into a couple hours. And I remember leaving that conversation just feeling so energized, just so incredibly happy that I was sharing my knowledge that I was gaining, helping them out. I could see that they were super interested and just totally motivated by what I had to share and how I had to share it. And that's when I started to get the inkling that my purpose was to do that sort of thing. Thank thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast, Wild Wisdom with Dr. Patricia Mills. If you like this podcast, please take the time to like and subscribe, and please feel free to leave any comments and look below for the contact information if you want to connect with me directly. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, or night.
Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for a professional care doctor or other qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you are looking for help in your journey, it is important that you seek out a qualified health practitioner. If you would like to work with Dr. Patricia for her expert health transformation guidance, please email her at info@drpatriciamills.com to book a discovery call. You can also find Dr. Patricia on Instagram at Dr. Patricia Mills and Facebook at Wild Wisdom for Women with Dr. Patricia Mills, MD. For access to all of Dr. Patricia's educational videos and more amazing perks, consider becoming a Patreon member. Links are in the description of this episode. It is important to have an expert in your corner that can help you make the changes you crave, especially when it comes to your health.